Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Commander video. This time I'm going to be evaluating all of the legendary creature Commander options that we have from the new set, Phyrexia All Will Be One. If you enjoy these videos, subscribe to the channel and become a channel member. With the Void Mage tier, you can gain early access to videos such as these in the community tab. Now inevitably, I know I'm going to get the comments, well, Commander Void, not every single legendary creature is intended to be a commander. However, Commander is arguably the most popular format in Magic, so whenever there's a new legendary creature, you better believe people are going to start thinking about it being potentially a commander option. If there is a will, there's a way, and it's going to happen. So the first one we're going to go over, this is in Wooburg order until we get to multicolored. Skrelv Defector Might, the 1-mana Phyrexian Might, legendary artifact creature, a 1/1, toxic 1. Not as good as Infect, but still, considering this is only a 1/1. If you can get in early swing, maybe you can proliferate, add to those poison counters you're giving to your opponents. The abilities here are not really enough for me to consider this being a good commander option. We've seen plenty of cheap legendary creatures such as these, where there isn't enough meat on the bone to make it that viable. The ability is kind of cool though, it reminds me of 8.5 Tails, although I do think 8.5 Tails is a little bit better. There's just a little bit more flavor with that commander option. Kemba Enduring is not my favorite between this and the original Kemba. I very much prefer the ease of getting all of those cat tokens by having a bunch of equipment equipped to Kemba. This has its usefulness though. If there's a downside, it's that you're not just going to go pure cats, you have to go cat equipment. It is precedented though. We did have the original Kemba, of course, and the Commander 2017 product, which was half cats and about half equipment. Mondrak Glory Dominus is essentially anointed procession on a creature, and the Dominus creatures are pretty overpowered. Commander option-wise, though, it's not really thought-provoking, and I think that's what's going to work against these really overpowered cards. I mean, people are going to talk about power creep for a good reason, but when it comes to Commander, people want to play with something they haven't played with before, and people have played with Parallel Lives and Anointed Procession a bunch. Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, again, this is one that I've even made a deck tech for, and while it's really cool, really powerful, going to hurt your opponents at the same time, it's just more redundancy if you like ETB decks, if you care about getting additional triggers for your Enter the Battlefield abilities. Limited also in the fact that you're just playing in mono white. So while it is maybe going to be one of the more powerful commander options, it's not exactly as rewarding as maybe playing with a strategy that you have no experience with. Unctus Grand Metatect, this is blue now, kind of like Grand Architect, in that you're able to make an artifact creature blue. Other blue creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes tapped, you draw a card and discard a card, and other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay either 2 life or 1 blue mana until end of turn. Target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. Activate only at sorcery. If it didn't have that condition of making you discard, if it wasn't just a loot, I would certainly think that this is a powerful commander option, similar to that of Azami Lady of Scrolls and arguably even more powerful. So it's very meh for me, it's not enough. Just light artifact creature support, it's not exactly what I've been looking for. We have Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus, another Dominus. This one is maybe my favorite because we have proliferate support, but it's not overdone. You know, Atraxa is pretty much it. If you didn't play Atraxa, you probably didn't proliferate that often in Commander. And Proliferate is a very flexible ability. It's not just about one thing. Infect is a powerful win con, but it's not the only way that you can abuse Proliferate. So get your Planeswalkers out there, get your +1/+1 counter stuff. Really cool, I like this one. It's maybe my favorite of the Dominus creatures. Now real quickly, we're on to black. Vran Executioner Thane. If you like yourself Zulaport Cutthroat, this isn't going to replace that anytime soon, but if you're looking for creatures to add to that kind of strategy in Aristocrats, this is far from the worst card that you could consider. Yes, it's only going to trigger once each turn, but you could get that on your opponent's turns as well, making them lose 2 life, you gain 2 life. It's got a great creature type in Phyrexian Vampire, so no, not really a commander option, the first no-brainer for me. This is clearly of the 99. Karamonix the Rat King, however, is a great commander candidate. Toxic 1, it gives your other rats Toxic 1. It enters, it gets you to your next rat cards off the top of your library. It's pretty affordable at only 3 mana. Yes, Toxic is basically a nerfed Infect, but it's still going to make you a bit of a target. That being said, it's Rat Tribal, it's pretty cool, it's easy to make this a commander. Geth Thane of Contracts. I don't know how I really feel about this card. All I can say is that I don't want to play him as a commander. The original Geth was actually pretty cool. You could incorporate Mill with getting creatures and artifacts back from your opponent's graveyard. This one basically makes you pay 3 mana and have to tap it to get an Unearth. And you can only do it at sorcery, so you're kind of screwed on that. Your other creatures get -1/-1. I'm sure there's got to be some way that you could abuse this, but as far as looking at it as a commander option in mono black of all things, I'm not exactly impressed. Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus is basically what you got with Teysa Karlov. But this time it's mono black, so it's even better, it's even more flexible. Any deck that would be able to play Teysa is going to play this. You can't say that the other way around. It has the same ability where you could make it indestructible. 5 mana for an 8/3, that is already pretty good. Making this indestructible, it's going to block for you all day. But again, as a commander option, I would actually rather play Teysa because you get access to white. This is clearly, like the other Dominus creatures, going to be a lot stronger as one of the 99. Slowbad Iron Goblin. I would say this is a fair mono-red artifact commander. That's what you want out of your commanders. You want some kind of resource. If it's not going to get you to your next spells, you at least want to get some extra mana. You want to be building towards something, and this is going to provide you with a bunch of red mana by sacrificing your artifacts. Sulfim Mayhem Dominus is the 4th of the Domini in this cycle, and it's what you would expect if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls that deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. So it's double stuffed, you're getting double everything. These creatures are no doubt insane, they're going to fit into a ton of decks, and it again also has the ability to make itself indestructible. Thrune Breaker of Silence, this is kinda similar to my take on Kemba. This time around, Thrune just doesn't do anything for me. The original Thrune was very much a perfect Voltron candidate, because your opponents couldn't really do anything about him. If they have a way of hurting him with a green source, they're perfectly capable of doing that. He can make himself indestructible on your turn, and he also has trample. Can't be countered, but again, not really that different from the original Thrune. You could say he's arguably much worse. Doesn't really do much for me. The last of the Dominus creatures is Zapandrel Hunger Dominus. The most expensive of them at 7 mana in green, but at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So that's nice. It's not doubling triggers or anything like that, but it is doubling something. So you could do this main phase 1 and then double the power and toughness of each of your creatures going into combat. It arguably has the easiest cost to meet in order to make it indestructible. Sacrificing creatures in a creature-based deck is pretty easy, so you're probably going to have an easier time keeping it out there. Again, not as much a commander option as it is going to be one of the 99 like the other Dominus. Jor-Kadeen, first Gold Warden, our first multicolored creature. If you were to release this card 9 years ago, Boros players would be in love with it. Only 2 mana, it's aggressive, decent enough stats. You didn't always get trample in Boros, it was usually first strike, double strike, maybe vigilance, things like that. Trample's good because Jor-Kadeen has a way of making himself bigger. It gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of equipped creatures you control. Then if he has power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Easiest way to do that, of course, is to get any kind of equipment onto him that makes his power 4 or greater, so you're pretty much guaranteed to draw that card. It's only one card, which is why I said if you released this creature 9 years ago, it would be a pretty popular commander. Nowadays, it has a good cost, but it would just need to do a little bit more than this. Venser Corpse Puppet, another 2 mana commander option. Lifelink Toxic 1, whenever you proliferate, you choose one. If you don't control a creature named the Hollow Sentinel, create the Hollow Sentinel, which is a 3/3 Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. Or if you proliferate, you can have target artifact creature you control gain flying and lifelink until end of turn. Solid, but I think there would need to be a little bit more meat on the bone. I like 3/3 bodies. They're going to be blocking for you all day. They're going to be swinging for you all day. The fact that you can make them flying and lifelink is even better. But there's just a lot that's weird for me. First of all, he only has 1 power, and he has lifelink and Toxic 1. You would have to invest some space in your deck into trying to make him more formidable in combat. Because why proliferate if you're not putting poison counters on your opponents with that Toxic 1? We have Melira the Living Cure. Kind of a mix of what the old Melira did and Safi Eriksdottir. Not really as good as either. but there needed to be compromises made, I understand that. And all of this on a 3/3 for 2 mana, so take that into consideration. Those are pretty good stats. Why it's worse than the original Melira is that it doesn't prevent you from getting poison counters, it just limits them to 1. Why it's worse than Safi Eric's daughter is because you have to end up exiling it, which is something you can get around with in Commander if you decide to make her your commander, but obviously if you can have her go to the graveyard to satisfy this cost, it would be a lot better. Galissa Sunslayer, pretty much the same 3/3 for 3 mana for Strike Death Touch. However, this is not as impressive to me as the original Glissa. You have to deal combat damage to a player. I just want to equip her with something that allows her to ping off creatures and potentially deal damage to players in order to get a trigger off like this. The fact that I have to deal combat damage is a bit of a letdown, because you get 3 modes here. While they're decent modes, it's what I've said before a couple times in this video already, there's not enough meat on the bone for me. Malcator Purity Overseer, a very simple golem creature token deck, and it's not going to do anything outside of getting you those tokens. You have to play aggressive artifacts, which isn't too difficult. Getting 3 or more artifacts to enter the battlefield under your control in a single turn is going to be easy if you like treasure tokens, of course. You can blink artifact creatures and satisfy that condition pretty easily, and you're just getting more golems. With Miglaw's Maze Crusher, I like the concept here. I think they were onto something. Having it enter with 5 oil counters, and then maybe you proliferate and keep those oil counters on it, and just use this as a resource, because I do like what we can do if we remove those oil counters. Vigilance and Menace until end of turn if we remove 1. If we remove 2, we can give it +2/+2 until end of turn. If we remove 3, this is my favorite, you can destroy an artifact or an enchantment. The downside is having to pay mana in addition to removing those oil counters. Consider that you're going to have to invest time into building those oil counters up and proliferating them, just so you don't run out quickly. Then after that, you still have to pay mana to get these abilities off. Close but no cigar. Kethek Crucible Goliath. I really like this one. It's not going to do anything brand new. Black and red aristocrat decks, I think, have gotten stronger over the past 4 or 5 years. And this one's going to be easy to synergize with. Just play a lot of cheap red and black creatures. Good ETBs, good death triggers that make this worthwhile so that you're not just getting some random 1-drop. You're actually getting something that's going to make it worth sacrificing the previous creature. But that's pretty much it. It's open-ended. Good death triggers, maybe really good ETBs. Red and black, and that's how you play Kethek. Maria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. Battle Cry is okay. It's not that attractive in a commander, but it could make a difference if you are capable of getting a bunch of smaller creature tokens. Giving them a bit of a buff could actually help you out. I do like how this is one of the more different commander options, where you're trading off dealing combat damage with one of your creatures in order to get yourself some of these 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens, and those tokens have Toxic 1. You would probably want to fill your deck with creatures that have a decent amount of power. That way preventing the combat damage that they would be dealing is actually worth it. Azuri Stalker of Spheres, this is one of those proliferate commander options that you can totally understand how to build around it. It's a basic card draw engine. Don't be too distracted by the idea of having to pay 7 mana to get him out there the first time in order to get those proliferates. That's not really the way you should be playing around Azuri. You should be playing Blink. That way you can pay 3 mana multiple times by itself, getting yourself those proliferate triggers and then drawing more cards. This is also one of those that I think you could consider it a decent commander option and a really good one of the 99. It's no secret Atraxa, the original one, is getting a lot of support in this set. That way your deck isn't entirely reliant on her for your proliferate. Azuri is one of those great one of the 99 cards for that commander. Next we have Ovika Enigma Goliath. I really like the ward, and I like the way that they made ward a little bit more intimidating. So if you want to do something about Ovika when it's on the field, you're going to have to pay 3 mana and 3 life. And this is going to be probably against a good counter spell strategy. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get X 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of that spell, and they gain haste until end of turn. So that is pretty powerful. Obviously, if you're going to spend 7 mana on any commander, you're going to want to have power. Other than that, it's what you would expect out of blue and red. Solid rewards for non-creature spells. We have the new Atraxa Grand Unifier. I compared this to Niv Mizzet in my video short about her. If you play Blink, if you abuse the ETB, you're gonna keep a full hand. She maybe isn't the most interesting ability to have on an ETB, but this is certainly going to be a solid commander. It is 7 mana, you're getting your mana's worth. You got great stats this time, 7/7. while also retaining Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. It's similar to Azuri, you don't want to spend too much mana, you want to blink this, you want to get that value that way. And I think it's going to work out pretty well. And then finally, we have Graz Unstoppable Juggernaut. Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls. And other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are juggernauts in addition to their other creature types. I like the idea of creature tribal for under-supported creature tribes. However, this is 8 mana. The best way to get value out of this that I can think of is to play a lot of cards that would provide you with smaller tokens. That way you would be turning 1/1 Thopters into 5/3 Juggernauts. That being said, it's still 8 mana to play it. You're going to be using colorless, so this would really be something you would have to go out of your way to build around, which might be what people are looking for. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for the evaluation of all of the commander options from Phyrexia All Will Be One. This was, of course, the main set. The commander product is not fully spoiled yet as of the making of this video, but by the time that it is, I will likely have a video for that one out as well. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Commander Void here. I will see you all next time.